Hi there, everyone. How are you? I hope you're very well. So, tonight we are talking about switching your fat programs off. Now, for those of you that know me well, you'll know that I really like the John Gabriel method. If you've not read the book, read it. This is about emotional and psychological obesity. It's more than calories in and calories out. It's why your body wants to be fat. Yeah. So often the body will hold on to fat as a means of protection, and the body doesn't know the difference between mental, physical, or emotional stress. It's just all stress to the body. So that's why you can get stressed at work and it'll still think a lion is running after the body. So it does everything it can just to survive and, and to move forward. So I have been interested in the Gabriel method for a long time, but there's a Dr. Johnston now that's brought out a book called The Fat Switch. Now, it's really weird how this has come about, really, because when they entered into the research and into the investigation and the scientific research, initially, they weren't even looking at human beings. They were looking at animals. Yeah, so there are many, many animals that can switch their fat programs on and off at will. And they thought, oh, maybe it's just seasonal, or maybe it's just, a coincidence, or maybe it's just genetic. Or now they know that animals can switch their fat programs off and on as and when they need them. Isn't that clever? So I'll give you a few examples. Of course, everybody knows the brown bear likes to get fat before winter so that he can survive the winter in hibernation. So he will deliberately, the fat little bear will deliberately get fat in order to survive the winter. Yeah. There is a pufferfish, little fish in the Amazon, and when the Amazon swells, it deliberately goes out hunting for the food it needs to get really fat, and it gets really fat, and then when the Amazon goes back to its normal levels, it survives then without eating for a few months, but it deliberately gets fat. There are birds that get fat before a long flight over the ocean. Even chickens choose to get fat at certain times when they have to sit on their eggs. So they'll get fat prior to that time of sitting on their eggs. So there's many, many animals, domestic and non-domestic, that actually switch their programs on deliberately. Of course, the other side of the coin is they can switch them off deliberately as well. So there are certain times that the bears have to be extremely agile in order to catch salmon, for instance. There's eagles that have to be as light as possible for their aerodynamics and gymnastics in the air when going for food or attacking other birds, but it works better for them to be lighter, and so they were researching this and looking at how animals were deliberately turning their fat programs on when they needed it, and then turning their fat programs off when they needed it. And then they thought, I wonder if humans can do this too, and we've just not thought about it. So here we go. This is all about the fat programs and switching them off. Now, I know that maybe a few of you have come through the Transform program and you've worked really, really hard, but maybe not have got the dramatic results that some of the others have got. And that's because your fat programs are still on. Now, there's a number of things that can affect the fat programs, medication being one of them, stress, and lots of other things can affect your fat programs. So often when we're looking at turning the fat programs off, meditation and calm, periods of calm every single day are required to tell the body it's okay. Everything is okay out there. Honest to God, it's not World War III. So the body doesn't know, the body doesn't understand cars and central heating. It doesn't understand, you know, size 8 dresses. It doesn't understand anything like that. It only understands the need to survive. And if it thinks all hell is breaking loose outside of itself, it's gonna do everything it can to protect itself. So you've got to take that time out. You've got to meditate, you've got to go to a Pilates class, you've got to chill, lie down on the bed for 10 minutes, breathe, do what you need to tell the body it's okay, calm. Or are you going through every single day in a manic, emotional, stressed sense? You know, are you never having that? And then you wonder why you can't sleep at night. You wonder why you worry. You wonder why you're anxious. I've already spoken before about how people can be perfectly fine emotionally and psychologically, but their body can be anxious. And when the body is anxious, the fat programs are on. Now, the low-fat food industry is a multi-million trillion pound industry, and we've been trained, and even I was when I was younger, that low fat is good and fat is bad for you, and this is so terrible, and we really have to look at fat, and it's going to give you a heart attack and all the rest of it. When really 60% of our brain matter is made up of fat. And our bursas, our shock absorbers in our joints are made up of fat, and the lubrication in our joints is fat. You know, we need fat to keep toxins away from our main organs. We need fat to store our vitamins and minerals in as well. You know, so also we store water in our fat, especially the ladies more than the guys store water in their fat. So fat is quite essential for, you know, needing to live. The fat we don't need is saturated fat. That's the fat that clogs your arteries. That's the fat that's no good for you. But over the years, we've been, you know, drilled into us that fat is bad for us and all the rest of it. Now, when they were researching the animals, and they were researching the bears and the birds and all these animals that could effectively turn their fat programs on and turn them off at will, well, really, it should have been heart attack city, shouldn't it, for these animals? They were getting incredibly fat, and then they were getting thin again. So they were getting fat and getting thin. People would say that's not healthy, you know, putting on all that fat. The other thing that they discovered is it's not fat that activates your fat programs. It is sugar. That's what activates your fat programs. So it's quite interesting, really. So let's just go back to the animals for the moment. And I want you to think of the multi-million pound low-fat industry that's out there. You go into Asda, Tesco, Sainsbury's, Waitrose, anywhere, you will see low-fat this, low-fat that. Check the labels. There's not that much difference between them, really. So, and often they put more calories in to reduce it down, so it looks like they're reducing the fat, when really it's much the same. So they discovered with the animals that they used sugar to activate their fat cells and put their body into fat storage. So the bears would go out and they would find the sweetest, ripest berries and things like that to eat, and that would activate their fat cells, and they would continue to do that, and then anything extra they put into themselves they would store. Yeah, the puffer fish in the Amazon only eats fruit, but he doesn't eat any old fruit. He eats the really overripe, rotten fruit that falls from the trees down into the water, and he eats that fruit and it makes him really fat, and then he can survive quite a long time without having to eat. Yeah. Birds were noticed to be eating overripe, sometimes rotten fruit in order to activate their fat cells, so that then they would get fat in order to take their flight over oceans. And then they got a little bit sly with the investigations, and they decided to place some food beside chickens to see whether they would sit on the eggs and eat the food beside them. They made it easy for them. But the chickens knew the trick, and they didn't overeat on this food at all, and they made sure that they got the other type of sugars that they needed to maintain their fatness. Just as the opposite way round, when they were deactivating their fat cells, they would come off the sugar altogether. Interesting, isn't it? So let's go back through a little bit of history. In the war times, fruit was rationed and sugar was rationed. It was rare to, it was a rare treat to get an orange or a banana in war times, and it was a rare treat to have sugar. It was something that was used for special occasions. The sugar was brought out, and sweetness used to be found in other ways, like with honeys and treacles and things like that. Sugar and sweetness was found in a different way. So you've got to imagine, up until the 1940s, sugar was very much unavailable to people on a regular basis. And if it was available, it was rationed and used in moderation. So then comes the freedom of the 1950s, yeah? And next thing, sugar was readily available, imported in. It started to be grown itself with sugar canes and things. Next thing, the sweeties started coming out, and things started to develop, and suddenly they found that if they put sugar into things, people loved the taste of sugar, and suddenly sugar was readily available to everyone in whatever quantity they wanted. And when they looked back over the time, the 1950s was when obesity started to jump up. So it jumped up 13% and then 24%. So the jumps were big with the introduction of sugar. Now, if you eat some nice fruit, people go, well, I'm being really healthy and I'm eating lots of fruit. If you eat a banana or an apple or anything, you're going to get about 4 to 5 grams of the fructose sugar, in there, and it won't really do you much harm. That's only a small amount, really. But the riper the fruit gets, the more effect it will have on your sugar, on your fat cells. So you've got to imagine an overripe banana, when they go a bit brown, and people go, it'll be all right, I just won't eat the end. We've all done it. Pears, oh, lovely, juicy, sweet pears, and they're just a bit overripe, but they're lovely and soft and everything. Just a little bit too overripe there. So the idea is to reduce your sugar right down, yeah? Obviously, we want to reduce your fake sugar. We want to reduce your sweeties and your pastries and things like that. And if you are going to have sugar, I'd be really pushing you towards the brown natural sugars, the natural honeys, things like that to get your sweetness. As for overripe fruit, I'd be saying, no, eat your fruit either slightly underripe or just nice. Don't eat it when it's very, very sweet, and a little bit too ripe. And so then you can make some very easy choices and reduce your sugar significantly, yeah? Obviously, fizzy drinks, things like this have a high amount of sugar in them. Pizza has something silly like 30 teaspoons of sugar in it. It doesn't even taste sweet, does it? But it's got like 30 teaspoons of sugar in a little pizza. So there's a lot of food that has hidden sugars in it. And obviously, if you are a carbohydrate fiend, your carbohydrates turn to glucose, sugar in the blood. So you can see how then the fat cells are activated on all sides. And people go, well, oh my God, I can't eat anything now. But we can. There's plenty we can eat. But we can make some small adjustments to turn the fat programs off. So think of the animals now. One of the things they do to switch the fat programs off is sleep. A big long sleep will turn your fat programs off. You need to de-stress. You need to calm that cortisol and adrenaline stress hormones down. You need to take time out every single day to calm the stress levels down. Also, there are a number of physical things you can do. Yes, you can reduce your sugar. Sugar is what's activating your fat cells. Yeah, so you can reduce your sugar quite naturally, quite simply. And this goes with fruit juice. They recommend 4 to 6 ounces of fruit juice a day and no more. Yeah, so it's very sweet, is fruit juice. You know, you're allowed it, it's very good for you. We're just eating it in too many quantities. We can already reduce our carbohydrates. You'll know if you're eating too many carbohydrates because you'll be sleepy, you know, so you can reduce your carbohydrates. But here's a couple of things that I really love, and you will love too, and I bet you'll try them because they're easy and people go, oh my God, that's gorgeous. There's 2 things you can do. They found that the animals had a crazy, like, 5 minutes of like frantic activity when they first got up, and it was like having a little happy 5 or 10 minutes. And they were doing it for a reason. They were doing it to turn off their fat programs, and they probably do it quite naturally as well. So they were saying you don't have to exercise for an hour and a half in the morning, but if you give yourself that 5 minutes of, you know, definite exercise first thing, it will turn off your fat programs. It will really help you. So this is where I'm saying, you know, your 3-minute step does come in handy. Do a 5-minute step. Do one of my super fast 5-minute workouts that I send out to people from Fitness Blast and things. So 5 minutes, that's all you need. And that's all they would need. Then they'd go down, you know, nice and quiet and stable again. Now, here's the one you're gonna like, right? There are certain foods that actually affect the mitochondria around the fat cells in order to turn off the fat programs. And one of those foods is the 70% cocoa dark chocolate. Oh, the ears are pricked up suddenly. So the dark chocolate, 70% cocoa, all you have to do is, and it's quite bitter, that one as well, because it's heavy, you know, it's a heavy one, is have 2 squares of super dark chocolate, 70% cocoa, 80% cocoa, every day. And this will help, the actual ingredients in there will help you turn off your fat programs. Now, there are other foods that you can eat, but I'm trying to keep it simple. And what's quite funny is I'm always looking for something that people will actually do. So you know what it is, you can talk your way around things all over the place, but I want you to do these things. So when I mentioned, hey, do me a favor, can you have 2 squares of really dark chocolate every day for a month and tell me what happens? People go, oh yeah, I'll do that, yeah. If I go, will you run 5 miles for me every day? Will you do that for me? They go, oh, I don't know, Anna. So I'm looking for the simple stuff. So reduce your sugar, reduce your fake sugar. If you eat fruit, I don't want it overripe. I want it either a little bit underripe or just ripe, not overripe at all. Reduce your fruit juices. You can have 4 to 6 ounces every day, but just no more than that. And that's only a very small glass, it's 4 to 6 ounces. And then you can have your 2 squares of super dark 70 to 80% cocoa chocolate every day, and your 5 minutes of fluid activity first thing in the morning to turn off those fat programs. And of course, with that, we want you sleeping well, and we want the body to be told that everything is okay out there, everything's fine. Just relax, you know, just, you know, take 10 minutes out of your day, lie down on the floor and just chill out, you know. If you want one of my audios, relaxation audios, I will send it to you and you can listen to it and you'll chill right out, yeah. So it's called The Fat Switch. It's on iBooks. It's quite scientific. I've been going through the research. So it started off looking at animals, and they thought that maybe this was just seasonal, genetic, or something that the animals did automatically. Now they know that animals can turn their fat programs on and off at will, and we have something to learn from nature. We also know that the low fat industry has really been pushed and pushed and pushed. We've earned a lot, there's a lot of money going through the low fat industry. People are buying into low fat. They want us to keep buying low fat when really fat isn't the problem at all. Saturated fat, that's not so good, and trans fat, fake fat, that's not so good. But the other fats we need all that. What we don't need is excessive amounts of sugar. And now, even in tins of baked beans, there's sugar. Sugar in all kinds of things, tinned soups and tinned peas and sweeties and pastries and pizzas and things you don't even consider to be sweet have got sugar in, and overripe fruit, and too big a glass of fruit juices, too many carbohydrates in the system. It's sugar. And I thought it was very interesting that up until the 1940s, there really wasn't an obesity problem. Food, I know, was being rationed with the war. People were eating much smaller portions, I know, but they all had their puddings, but they were much smaller then, so they would have their dinner and then they might have stewed apple and cream or something. But the portion was actually very small, so they weren't overdosing on sugar, and often even something sweet was a little bit sour as well, sweet and sour taste there. And sweeties weren't as readily available as they are now. They couldn't walk into a shop like you can now and see rows and rows and rows of chocolate bars, So when the 1950s hit, and then sugar became imported and made and brought in and was readily available to everybody in whatever quantities they wanted, that's really when they saw an increase in obesity quite majorly. And also sugar is acidic to the body. So the more acidic the body is, the less chance you have of losing weight. This is why medication can affect weight, because it makes the body acidic. So you'll put weight on and you'll struggle to lose it. I've been there, right? So we're looking at alkaline in the body by reducing the sugar. So I want you to really think about your own diet. I know sometimes it's hard to look in the mirror. It is for me, sometimes. Look at your own diet and assess how much sugar is going into it. You might think, oh, I'm doing all right. I don't think I have that much. And when you look at it, then you'll see like maybe a few hidden sugars in there, and a few small changes will make a big difference. So for example, I was looking for something a little bit fizzy and sparkling, and I was looking for something, but I didn't want the high fructose sugar content. And do you know, it escapes me now, but there's a natural juice, like a sparkling mineral juice that's just come out in cans, and it has little foil over the top. And when I looked at the ingredients, I thought, I can have that and it won't affect me. So, and they do it in like blood orange and grapefruit and orange juice and different things like that. So I found a couple of things already that have made a big difference. Now, as you know, I've had a tough couple of weeks with my health condition, and of course I piled the weight on when my poor little bowels don't work very well. And I just thought this last week, I'm going to go for it with this sugar thing. I'm going to reduce my sugar. I'm going to have my little dark pieces of chocolate. I'm going to do my 5 minutes of craziness first thing in the morning. I'm going to try and get some more sleep. I'm going to do all of that. And I stepped on the scales just a few days after, and I dropped a few pounds. So I thought, oh, interesting. Now, some of you did notice when I filmed myself doing yoga and that I was rounder, I was puffier. But as you can see, the jawline is back in place. Often I get a bit puffy around the face, when I'm bad. So the jawline is back. So I'm like, So there's nothing like proving a theory. There's nothing like proving it. You can read the John Gabriel method if you wish. You can read the Fat Switch if you wish. They're on iBooks. You can just download them onto your phone or your iPad or your computer to read. if you really wish to. But I want you to try those very, very simple things. And I bet you try the 2 bits of chocolate every day. Remember, it has to be the super dark chocolate, the 70 to 80% cocoa. And someone said, oh, well, that's rather expensive, but it is actually being sold in Tesco's at the moment quite cheaply. So get yourself to Tesco's and give it a go. Remember, you don't want the whole bar. We just want a little bit. But I want you to just try those simple things and tell me how you get on. If you get on really, really well, fabulous. Tell me if your fat programs are switched off. Yeah. When you think about when you put the weight on, I want you to think about the kind of foods you were eating. I want you to think about, were you eating high sugar more than high fat? Were you? You know, often we reach for sugar as the quickest form of energy when we're tired, when we're run down. We'll reach for that sugar first, when really all we're doing is turning the fat programs on. If we were little animals, the body would be saying, oh, she wants us to get fat. There must be some winter coming up or something. And that's what the body would think. So we have to learn from nature. And just think, don't you think we've missed the trick? It's like we've forgotten that we're part of nature. It's like we've forgotten how to do these things. So let's take a leaf out of the old brown bear and the puffer fish in the Amazon and the birdies that are flying over the ocean and the geese and the swans and even the little chickens, even the little squirrels and hedgehogs and badgers can turn on their fat cells and turn off. So while the little squirrel is burying his nuts, is also feasting on overripe, sugary berries in order to try and activate his fat cells so that he'll be nice and fat for the winter and he'll survive. In the spring comes, he doesn't have to eat them anymore, and so he'll avoid them and get thin again. So I thought I'd leave you with that. It's an interesting topic. I've tried to keep the science of it down a little bit because I don't want to kind of, you know, overburden you with the really crazy science of it because it is quite in depth, but it's highly interesting. So if you've got any questions, drop me a line. I'm here to help you all I can. And I hope you're very well. And I'll speak to you very soon. Bye.